Hey there, I'm Mark, in affiliation with Spectrum Pulse, and you know what? We got some new debuts that are interesting. Cardi B, 21 Pilots, unfortunately overshadowed by the guy on top. And this, it's Billboard Breakdown. I don't remember. So as a critic who occasionally does some journalism here, I think it's prudent for me to be careful on weeks like this, because there is indeed that one big story that unfortunately overshadows the sparse list of new arrivals that we have, despite their names. And I think there's generally a tendency to overreact or underreact in cases like this. I could go on the extended tirade, I could brush it off as no big deal, where in reality the discussion requires some length and layers, and truth be told, I did not initially predict the song would have the staying power that it does, which is a much darker reflection on that audience than I think they want to hear. But they were the ones that got to hear. They have to reap what they sowed. And thus, with that stage established, our top 10. We're running almost entirely on streaming with a last-ditch boost of sales and some pitiful radio. Carnival by Kanye West and Ty Dolla $ign, featuring Rich the Kid and Playboi Carti, at number 1. And with this many people behind it, those who are saying they're only here ironically for the jokes or because the beat and the hook go hard, brah, or I'm just here for Carti, no. Y'all are not getting away from this that easily. You have Rich the Kid saying he's gonna pull up in the trenches like Columbine. That's right, one of the least interesting mainstream rappers of the mid-2010s drops a forgettable verse, and then he compares himself to a school shooter, and he's not as dubiously good as when Lil Yachty did it on Broccoli with Drawn back in 2016. Then Ty Dolla $ign is going through the motions, but with a line about how girls want to fuck his car, and Playboi Carti honestly has nowhere close to the energy he needs to sell this bland flexing, and he's buried midway back where he compares his swag to a disease. You know what? I unironically agree with that. Iggy Azalea's baby daddy and notable abuser, he made 1 point. But alongside those and this oily, clunky mix leaning really hard on that choir to masquerade as a jock jam, alongside sampling the Hell of a Life riff because Kanye West is nothing without tainting his legacy, he compares himself to R. Kelly and Bill Cosby, who were canceled like him. He really wants y'all to ignore the context of well-documented sex crimes, including towards minors, and how in the former case it was targeted at Aaliyah, it was often wrapped up in gospel iconography, and the latter case full of respectability, politics, and conservatism, but also because he's so rich, he's like Puff Daddy, and he can pay off Me Too accusations. And you know what, spoilers? I don't think Diddy's getting out of that particular allegation either. But by the final lines, Kanye says he's doing it like for Chris Brown. He references his kids are in a fake school. Probably smart you cut yourself off there, Kanye, given all the allegations around the Donda Academy. But then it snaps into place. I mean, we have documented photographic evidence of when Chris Brown assaulted Rihanna and how his career just kept on going for the last 15 years. He's literally charting a new single right now. It's gaining. No. This is about the freedom of powerful men to cast doubt upon abuse allegations, avoid accountability, their victims be silenced, and then be praised endlessly for it. That's in the text of the song. I mean, the sure as shit aren't beating the fash allegations now, because that's at the root of how that ideology treats women. And when I look at the audience that unironically endorses this for being a banger and gets big mad whenever I bring up the rest, you're telling on yourselves. And I do know that some of you teenage white boys, you're gonna grow out of this. I was alive for the late 90s. I remember the shock rap of that era. I know some of this is built just for pure provocation, just entertainment. A carnival. Child's play, even. But I mean, come on, it's quite literally the definition of adolescent toxic machismo built for the gang rapes of Woodstock 99. Insecure grasping at power from weak little men for the perpetually unfuckable wanting to live out a fantasy. And the fact it did go to number 1 shows that a certain insufferably loud and privileged demographic has enough obsessive power to push it there regardless of what's being said on the record, which they want to deny except when they don't. I mean, just like what they did 25 years ago. And the tradition of this proudly ignorant, reflexively conservative horseshit that never seems to go away. But there is an asterisk here, because what was the competition that was facing this lazy posse cut? Or what it'll be facing next week when it'll probably hold on to the number 1? I mean, at number 2, we got Lose Control by Teddy Swims, where credit to Warner, they pulled out all the stops across sales and the radio, even a last-ditch boost on streaming, and it was just barely not enough. Congratulations, kids, you beat the first single of an act who might never even have another. Then there's Lovin' On Me by Jack Harlow at number 3, a song from last year that is losing in all categories, and Beautiful Things by Benson Boone at number 4, where the radio run is happening, but not quite enough to push forward beyond the streaming. My god, this shit at the top of the charts, it is friggin' rough. Now, what's notable here is the sharp dip for Texas Hold'em by Beyonce at number 5, where her sales did hold firm, but streaming slid hard and she's just not closing the margins on radio fast enough. Then we saw a spike for Greedy by Tate McRae at number 6, which saw a modest recovery on streaming to shore up the radio losses, but it did hold over I Remember Everything by Zach Bryan featuring Casey Musgraves at number 7, where the radio finally gave up even attempting the perfunctory push and left it to its streaming, which is still really strong. Then we saw Snooze by SZA pick up a little bit to number 8. I'm putting this up to a weirdly consistent week on the radio and Saturn falling out of the top 10, as well as songs around her declining, and that's our return for the top 10 for Agora Hills by Doja Cat at number 9, even as its radio looks like it may have peaked. Finally, Cruel Summer by Taylor Swift at number 10 as she slowly exits with a song from 2019 and being on a label that's currently locked out of TikTok promo, along with over half of the music industry. I mean, you'll see how this impacts how one might view the number 1 in this era, right? I know Kanye's fanbase loves for any nuance to be off the table entirely, but the competition, they're new acts chasing their first breakthrough, old songs that already peaked with establishment acts that are tied to questionable label situations, and Beyonce, who already beat you on your debut week. And it's likely not gonna happen again. You're not getting another song. Vultures 2, of course, did not drop on time, and he wants y'all to pay cash for it to him directly when the full album when it comes, which for a large chunk of his and Playboi Carti's fanbase, they've just refused to do. I mean, that leaves me with 2 thoughts. The first being that Kanye West only adopts a populist cause when he needs money, and the second, said fan bases aren't quite as committed to those values if they're required to put more tangible cash on the line. Paradoxically, that's a little bit reassuring. But now that we're past all that drama, let's keep things a little bit moving, focus on the losers and dropouts, where once again some of the larger label conversation does take precedence. It's not quite as applicable to our 2 dropouts. They had their respectable runs. They're going to clinch their year-end list spots. Dance the Night by Dua Lipa and Monaco by Bad Bunny. And the losers, they aren't really surprising in that vein, with the expected continued drop-offs for 16 Carriages by Beyonce at 98, Yes and by Ariana Grande at 31. It's gonna rebound next week for her album, I'd bet on it. And Fuck Something by Kanye West and Ty Dolla $ign at 92, because the rest of the songs on Vultures 1 really are not performing that well. Then we got losses from the debuts last week. Holy Smokes by Bailey Zimmerman down to 73. I'm not exactly surprised that it's not catching on despite the favorable label situation. And Wine into Whiskey by Tucker Wetmore at 100, where a little bit of indie traction is only gonna get you so far, even if you got that boost of virality. Finally, Think You the Shit Fart by Ice Spice slid down to 93. That's not surprising. She's on Capitol, that rolls up to Universal, and the TikTok feud likely puts a major damper on her promo opportunities on that platform. So let's head to our returns and gains, where in the former group, Country once again shows that they don't really rely on TikTok in the same way as much when Music Row and Nashville Radio can fill in the gaps, like how We Don't Fight Anymore by Carly Pierce featuring Chris Stapleton came back to 96, and Creek Will Rise by Connor Smith hit 97. And in the case of Wondering Why by the Red Clay Strays at 99, they're independent. They have that viral flicker that's kept them bouncing on and off the charts for the past month or 2. Of course, the label controversy is most evident in the gains here. So let's start off with the continued success for End to Beginning by Dijo up to 23, Under AWOL, He's Protected, and To Name by Fuerza Regida at 66, thanks Sony Music Latin for that. Then we got the returns that are catching fire, like Scared to Start by Michael Markagi at 69, thank Warner, and For My Eyes by Travis Scott up to 84, thank Epic, that's under Sony, probably the reason why Fiend with Playboi Carti also saw a boost to 48. The rest of our gains are kind of interesting though. Sensational by Chris Brown featuring Lil J and DeVito is up to 71. Again, he's on RCA, that's under Sony, he'll be just fine outside of usual RCA bumbling. Oklahoma Smoke Show by Zach Bryan saw another spike to 81 because this song has just just never picked up consistently, but he is on Warner. But the big story is Yeah Glow by Glorilla at 49. And it's interesting because she's on Interscope. That rolls under Universal. She doesn't really have TikTok, but her streaming has really taken off, apparently thanks to Apple Music, where whatever promo there has really taken hold. I mean, I'm not complaining, it's a really good song, but it'll be interesting to see the acts that normally ride TikTok traction find other ways to get their promo out. And at least for Glorilla, someone at her label at Interscope managed to tap into streaming effectively, which speaks to better than expected management. I mean, the fact she's got a second single at all, that's probably evidence of it too. Intriguing. But again, we actually have a pretty small list of new arrivals this week, thank God. So let's start things off with number 86, Tucson Too Late by Jordan Davis.
In heaven knows I let her slip away. I showed up and she's gone, guess I got Tucson too late.
Hey look, the only debut here that's got a connection to Universal through MCA Nashville. Would you be surprised to discover that his song is already backed on Nashville radio, and thus TikTok promo does not really matter as much? I mean, shame we're dealing with Jordan Davis here, who in recent years has gotten a little bit better from his wannabe Sam Hunt origin and reputation, as he's tried to embrace more maturity and neo-traditional tones. So why does this feel like a bit of a backslide? Maybe it's that shuffling tap of that percussion that feels oddly busy compared to any of the hazy guitar leads, or how the airy backing vocals just feel a little bit too high to blend well with Davis's vocals, which have only ever been okay. It's a little bit over-polished, and that was one of my early consistent problems with this guy, and kind of a shame because I actually don't think the writing is that bad, as he's trying to chase after a girl who's flying out of Tucson to go somewhere else, and his old clunker of a car is not letting him get there on time to maybe talk her down, win her back. I don't know, I feel like I should like this a little more than I do. It's certainly pleasant, but it's nothing special. He's done a lot worse. He's also done much better. Number 74, Doctor Work It Out by Pharrell and Miley Cyrus.
Problem, it's only gonna get worse. I midnight medication, just show me where it hurts. I need to rock you, baby, before your body bursts.
Okay, how to explain this one? Apparently this was a cut from Miley Cyrus's Banger sessions back in 2013, probably in the same sessions where Come Get It Bae happened, as that single that for some stupid reason replaced FU with French Montana, which is way better. Now this verse leaked back in 2017, but now that Pharrell has apparently been spinning up this new project, the song's been reworked for a new release, and yeah, I don't know about this one. The slinky bass groove is pretty solid, and Miley is certainly game for it against the brittle disco guitar rollick, but when you factor in how canned the vocals can sound, alongside that dying fragment of country guitar and the increasingly rigid percussion, the whole sexy doctor routine runs out of gas pretty quickly. I mean, I think it's better than Come Get It Bae, at least, mostly because Pharrell stays behind the boards and lets Miley take the lead, but that's not saying much. I can't say I'm a fan of this. Good groove, not much else. Number 64, Overcompensate by 21 Pilots.
Don't hesitate, maybe overcompensate, and then by the time I catch in my peripheral, don't hesitate, maybe overcompensate.
You know, funnily enough, this might be the best possible time for 21 Pilots to break through again. Fueled by Ramen rolls up underneath Warner. Enough time has passed for folks who didn't like Scaled and Icy to maybe get behind this, and those folks are missing out. That album is legit great. It deserves a proper reappraisal. And you know what? 21 Pilots' lead-off singles, they tend to at least chart well at first, especially with this one being framed as a welcome back to Trench. Also an aside, if you need to catch up on the band's lore, they actually made a video that shows how Trench and Scaled and Icy link together in the same continuity, and funnily enough, it's not that far removed from the metaphorical connections that I traced in my review of Scaled and Icy 3 years ago. Yes, I know some old fans are kind of mad that they actually explained some of this. I don't know, it's nice of me to be validated. But with this, it is our protagonist once again possessing the dead body of Nico, aka Blurryface. You know, he cares what you think. With an overcompensation to retake the darker sounds of Trench with the warping bass alongside the drums and melodic rap rock of Blurryface, along with a healthy dose of real-world references and metatext, as all of this has been about 21 Pilots being torn between industry pressures and some of their own wild experimentation and proclivities to service the fanbase, with the whipsaw back and forth highlighting that there is probably a middle ground that he can now control. But that's the thing, playing to the middle can lead to a song that's more lore reinforcement than a strong single. I mean, it's no Jumpsuit or Shy Away or even a Stressed Out. So as it is, you know, I think it's the precursor for stronger music to come. I am excited for the album, but overall it's just decent to good. I'll take it. And finally, number 38, Like What Freestyle by Cardi B.
Like what? Like a coach bag, baby, this ain't what you want. If I ask for it, I wanna hear is yes. Bitch said she wanna be my op, God bless. Look, I ain't even got dressed. Any L that I took come after YS.
Okay, apparently there is a second Cardi B single coming later that's gonna follow this up. That has to mean the album rollout is starting, right? Cardi B's on Atlantic, that's under Warner, which means she will have all the advantages of TikTok promo when many of her competition won't. If she doesn't strike now, there are much bigger problems afoot. And you know what? This would be a way to do it, with a liberal Missy Elliott and Timbaland sample, a song full of pot shots at rivals, especially Nicki Minaj. I mean, why not go in while she's down? Having definitely lost that Megan Thee Stallion beef, I'm still waiting on all those follow-up diss tracks and a bunch of easy flexing. Now calling it a freestyle for the benefit of low expectations for that bigger swing coming. I mean, that's not surprising. A lot of rappers throw together a freestyle to settle off some old beef before the album rollout proper, and thus it kind of pains me to say that it's really not one of Cardi's best. It's tough to pin down exactly what doesn't work. The droning melody behind the fizzy percussion and the bass knock, I think it's missing some of the texture that gave the original She's a Bitch some punch. It's honestly a better song. The hook feels kind of stilted with the like what that feels like it's set up for a call and response that it doesn't really need, and the flexes feel just a bit token. But I think some of this is just how Cardi B's heart and intensity doesn't really manifest. I mean, she's still funny. The not getting into an unheated pool line, nice double meaning, that made me chuckle. But the last thing I want to hear from Cardi is that she stopped caring or that she stopped trying. And this doesn't have that swagger or intensity. I mean, I guess it's fine, but man, I was hoping for a lot more. Let's pray that proper single goes a lot harder. And thus we got a short week. Best and worst, they fall out real cleanly, with Overcompensate by 21 Pilots actually snagging the top spot. We had Doctor by Miley, Cyrus, and Pharrell Williams getting the worst. I'm sorry, the groove is not saving it. Next week, Ariana Grande album bomb? Maybe, if she can fight through the lack of TikTok promo for a proper shot. We'll have to see there. But until then, I'm Mark. You're watching Billboard Breakdown, affiliated with Spectrum Pulse. And I'll see you next time.